Welcome to the inUpowers podcast, where we give a name and a face to emotion. We discuss the real and raw when it comes to mental and emotional health. We are here to teach you that emotions are information and behavior is a choice. We want to help you make safer connections through healthy communication by empowering you to understand what your emotions are telling you. I'm your host, Tammy Hymas. Let's get started. Welcome to the inUpowers podcast. I'm Tammy.
And I'm Nikki.
And today we are going to talk about comparisons. And for our Moments Minute, I want you to think of the times you've compared yourself with someone else. And when you're comparing yourself, are you even kind? Or are you looking to see what they're doing wrong so you can feel better about yourself? Are you comparing yourself to yourself? Or are you actually just destroying yourself inside? That's why we're going to talk about comparisons today. So, Nikki, what are comparisons?
Well, and we were talking about this the other day, and I think comparisons is when we are comparing one thing to another. Now, if we're comparing favorite foods, this cake to this cake, I think it's okay to compare those kinds of things. Right. I like this cake versus this cake, or I like this flavored ice cream to this flavored ice cream. When we start comparing our traits and our characteristics and things to other people's, that's when it starts going downhill from there. So not all comparing is bad. My husband loves cars, and so he'll sit there and compare engines of various cars or different things that cars can do versus the other car. And that's okay. Right? But when you start comparing my hair color to somebody else's hair color, or even my abilities, I think we forget that we're all made to be exactly how we are, and we all can't be good at everything.
Exactly.
Because like I told you, if I know what you know and you know what I know, then we don't need each other.
Right.
Then what's the point?
We're all the same.
Exactly. But I need you for your knowledge and your characteristics and the things that you're good at, and you need me for mine. Whether it's in friendship, whether it's in a working environment, we need each other. And so I just get frustrated when we start comparing each other. And then it's in a negative way. And
Most
because
times.
We'll put someone else down to make ourselves feel better, or we'll have that inner dialogue in our head and those thoughts, those gnats that get at us, I'm not good enough, or we start saying, oh, I wish I had that, or I wish I could do this, oh, I wish this, or things like that, and it just starts being negative. You know what I'm saying?
So true. In fact, I remember a while ago, I was talking with this young lady who was at our house. We had acres in our yard and backyard, and my daughter, when she was in college, had roommates, and she would invite them over to play at our house because we were in the same town as the college. And she was telling me how she loves music and she can sing and all of this stuff, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could sing. And she goes, what? You can't sing? And I'm like, no, I can't sing. And she goes, I just assumed because you do hair and because you're pretty and you're comfortable in front of a crowd that you could sing and you could sew and you could. I go, and sew? I can't sing or sew.
Back in home ec class in high school, back when it was required, yes.
No, I also failed that.
Oh, you did? Yeah. I can do basics.
I can't even do that. But we tend to assume that other people are, because they're in their element. They're doing something that they're either in their home or they're doing their profession, like teaching or cutting hair or whatever their real talent is, that we assume all of our weaknesses are their strengths.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. It's sad that we do that to each other. And it's easier said than done not to compare.
Right.
I mean, come on. I'll look at something and I'm like, oh, that'd be awesome if I had that. Right. But I'm not doing it to the point where I'm putting myself down or them. It'd just be like, oh, that would make my life easier if I could do that, or if I had that, or whatnot. And so we just got to be careful, because I think too many times we can compare our looks. I think our looks is one of the biggest ones, that we wish we had that body type or this body type, this person's hair, that person's hair. You always want something you can't have. I wish I had curly hair. Curly hair people wish they had straight hair. It's just things like that. But we sit there and compare, and then it affects our mental health. It really does.
It absolutely does. In fact, a long time ago, we were doing a study, and men are more on the competition side, and women are more on the comparing side.
Yeah.
And either way, it's to be better or that the other person's worse than you. And none of that builds any of us.
No.
And we tend to do it in autopilot. But did you see it in your schools? Did you see it with the kids?
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Especially as the kids got older. You know, I taught fourth grade, and in fourth grade, they're really starting to become peer aware.
Explain that.
You know, and absolutely. So, like when they're in kindergarten, first grade, they really don't care what somebody else thinks of them. But as they get older, you know, their appearance, you know, because they don't want kids making fun of the clothes they're wearing, what they don't have, what they do have. Kids after Christmas would come and say, I got this, this, and this for Christmas. What did you get? You know, and somebody might have only gotten one or two things, you know, and so then they feel bad because they didn't get these things. And, you know, but they start bragging and they start worrying about what other people think about them, their looks, their grades, their material things they have, all those kinds of things start to take place. And I think it starts from back then to even to what kind of toys. Well, I have this toy. Well, I have this one. You know, I mean, I think the comparison can even get into the problem of trying to one up each other.
Yes.
You know, and so you see that. But you know what? You see that as teachers too. I remember when I came back into the public school system after staying home and teaching preschool for 10 years. That I found myself comparing myself to other teachers, the decorations in their rooms and how they organized their rooms and what they did, and I'm thinking I'm going to be a failure. What am I even doing here? You know, because I hadn't been in the classroom in a while and stuff, and I finally had to tell myself, stop. You're doing the best you can with what you've got and where you're at in your life. You know, because I didn't have extra time to print out, cut out, laminate, and do all these extra games for the kids.
Well,
at the time.
And they had collected that over years, and you had just gotten back in. So what took them years to collect, you were comparing against.
All right, but when you compare, there's no rational thought going on in your brain.
That's so
you know,
true.
that's why I say it's easier said than done.
Right.
That I'm not going to compare myself, and then you talk yourself down from it. No, it's fine, and then you go for a little while. Then you start when you're having a bad day, you start comparing yourself and questioning.
So did your preschool students do that?
No.
Like
No.
What did they do?
They don't care. Except for, okay, funny story. It's
Yes.
not comparing, but funny story. Valentine's. The kids brought Valentine's to pass out. And I thought, this is going to be so exciting, so fun. And I had kids in tears.
Why?
Because the girls were giving out girl Valentines and they wanted to get girl Valentines. And the boys were passing out boy Valentines and wanted to get boy Valentines. I don't want a Barbie Valentine. I want a car Valentine. It didn't even connect with them, right? And it was such an innocent thing. They were like, but I want the car, you know, and stuff, and teaching them to say thank you and you accept it. But they don't have those preconceived notions in their heads, you know. They just like, I want cars. You know,
give me a car.
Yeah, so give me a car. I don't want that. You know, they'll take the candy, but they don't want the little card that has a princess on it, right? You know, but to them, everyone's the same. They just don't think like that.
When do they change?
I don't know. Their maturity starts happening about second and third grade, and sometimes it's earlier for some, and sometimes later. Because I've even had fourth graders, their maturity level, they're crying under a desk because someone looked at them funny.
Okay.
Right? So their maturity level is not there. Right? So it just depends. But when they just start getting aware that people don't want to hang out with them when they behave a certain way, or they act a certain way, or talk a certain way, or things like that. And I think media plays a role.
Yes.
Because you watch things on TV and that's how other people are seen on television, or how people treat each other on TV and on television. Not to mention if there's older siblings or whatever, and how their older siblings are talking to them or their friends or to other people. They just see it. I mean, you got to remember, kids are sponges. They come into this world a blank slate, so they're going to imitate and copy what they see, hear, and do.
Which is super invaluable when we talk about comparisons. If they're going to copy what they see and hear from us and what we're doing, are we adding to the good for our children, or are we adding to the hurt of our children? Could you see the moms and the families that were very into competition and comparing and their children compared to the ones that were more like confident?
Yes.
What was the difference in their children? What
Well,
what changed?
those who are taught to do their best, you don't have to be perfect, things like that, had a better confidence and were more eager to help others, and just had a sunnier disposition, actually, sunnier, happier disposition about
Yes.
life. And then those that were expected to win all the time and be on top, they're less likely to help others. They're more likely to brag about what they did, what they have, point out what somebody else doesn't have, always have to be the boss,
Oh,
things like that. So, yeah, you can see different characteristics coming out. Now, that's not all saying it's coming from the parents, but
right.
they've seen it. It's just kind of like us moms and females who will always talk about our looks. I gotta lose weight. I gotta
Oh
do
my
weight.
goodness, yes.
I gotta diet. I gotta do this. Well, if our child is hearing us say that, what are they gonna learn?
The,
I gotta lose weight. I gotta diet. I gotta da 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 da. Instead of, I'm happy with the way I look. I want to be healthy, and this is me being healthy, and blah blah blah. So it's kind of like what you want to put out there,
right.
right? And that's what we tend to do as females, compare our looks or even like our accomplishments. People, compare accomplishments. Well, I went to college. Oh, well, I didn't.
Right.
That doesn't mean you're not any more successful or not, but that's just how it is. It's comparing. Like I said, comparing can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing depending on which way it goes.
Well, if you are learning the lessons and recognizing that you can grow and become healthier from who you were before, or habits that you might have acquired from your family or your generation that you don't want to repeat because you saw it hurt, that is a good time to compare this generation to that generation. I'm going to flip a switch. Or it's good when you recognize what you like and what you don't like. Or, and competition is not bad either,
No, helps us
becoming
to strive harder and to
right.
put forth the effort. If I want to be better and to win, then I've got to put forth the effort. It's not just going to come because I want it.
And it doesn't hurt to actually be peer aware either.
No.
Even as adults, if you're in a room full of people that have etiquette and are kind and are talking nice to each other, to rise yourself to that value is really great because that brings you up. And the same if you are in another environment that's really ugly and dark and or very critical and hurtful and attackful, you don't have to think that you're better than them, but you don't also have to like fall into those traps too. It's you can see the difference.
Right.
And those comparisons matter too.
Yeah.
Because that's why we can become what we're meant to be.
Well, and I think it's important to talk to your kids about it.
Yes.
And even to other people, your friends and stuff. And an example I have is my daughter and my son, another time, both of my kids asked, how come we don't have things that other people have? How come their kids get cars and all these toys? They have friends that have all these toys, four-wheelers and things like that, and we
Right.
don't. And we sat them down and talked to them about comparing and how we shouldn't compare because we make different choices. We make different financial choices. We choose to use our money in other ways. They choose to use their money in this way. I had a Girl Scout troop leader. They never ate out for dinner, ever. And I said to her, ever? And she's like, no, we just choose to spend our money a different way. And they don't look down on other people for going out. They had just made this thing like, well, if I'm capable of cooking at home, I'm going to cook at home and I'm going to take this money and we're going to go save it and go on a family vacation instead. It's just so we talk to our kids about what it means to compare and how it can turn into something negative inside, jealousy,
Right.
and things like that.
And envy.
And envy. But we just choose to use our money differently. And we said, when you get older, if that's how you choose to use your money, then that's a choice that you can make. But there's nothing wrong with having things, and there's nothing wrong with not having those things. We just choose to rent them when we want them instead of owning them because we don't want to have to buy the trailer and pay the insurance and all the things like that. That's just something we have chosen to do, and there's nothing wrong with it. And stuff like that. Or we're not buying you a car, we will help you buy a car, and things like that because that's not my job, but you shouldn't compare what kind of car you drive to one your friend's going to drive. And I'm like, I'm not buying a car or helping you get a car in a high school parking lot full of new learning drivers who are going to
Right?
ding up doors and everything. Why would I put a new car in that kind of environment, right?
I barely put a new car in my
I
lap.
know, right? Not to mention, I want my kids to learn through hard work and
Right.
effort, But just they compare because that's what kids see. They see the things that they have or don't have, and what others have or don't have, and then they think something's wrong with them. When all it is just a parents
Differences.
different lifestyle choices, financial choices, things like that. We need each other. Like I've had people tell me that I could never walk into a room and be able to control 25 kids for 6.5 hours a day.
Right.
And be able to
Absolutely.
get them to do work and teach them all the different subjects that I do and things like that. And I'm like, really? Because I can't do what you do. I couldn't be a dentist and be inside people's mouths. And let's not talk about feet. I can't stand feet. But I love the people who do my pedicures because I don't do feet, and just all the different things that we all know how to do. We need each other. So we need to stop comparing and putting some other people's things and materialistic things and images on a pedestal and think that we're less than because we're not. We
So
need
true.
each other. Our traits are unique and what make us us.
Us. One
Drink
of
you
the
Ome Coke.
Okay, good. I could do that. What I was going to say is at a salon, owning a salon and seeing it, I have watched so many people for the longest time give me images of celebrities or famous people or models, and they wanted to look like that for decades. And then all of a sudden it turned to social media. They would show me the people on social media that they wanted to follow. And then I started hearing, oh, well, it's fake, but I still want to look like this. Now I get Snapchats. We get Snapchatted filters of people, and they want us to make them look like their filter. And then they look at themselves in the mirror and they don't like what they see. And they know that it's not real. They know that what they're seeing in those pictures are not true representations. In fact, Tyra Banks says all the time, that's not the real me. The real me has stretch marks and like varicose veins or whatever. She would tell us, like, I don't look like my picture to people when I watched her shows and stuff. And she's like a supermodel, right? And so we know that, but yet we can't stop doing
Right.
that. So when you saw it with your children and in the classroom, how would you rewrite it? How do you catch it and work on it?
Just keep talking about it. I can't tell you how many times in my classroom how much I would tell them I appreciate each and every one of them and their different skill sets. That how we can't all be good at math, we can't all be good at science, we can't all be good at everything. That you have your strengths and we have our weaknesses, and that's okay. That it's okay, and just to keep reaffirming that over and over again. That and like with my daughter, you're beautiful.
Yeah.
You're beautiful the way you are. You're beautiful the way you are all the time. I love you. You're beautiful the way you are.
And I've heard parents like, well, she's the smart one. She's the pretty one. She's the musical one. That's also comparisons.
It is. And that is detrimental to your kids. I can't tell you how many times I've had students who've had older brothers and sisters, and parents have made comments about the older brothers and sisters that's negative to the younger kid coming in. He's not like his brother, so you're in for it for this one.
Oh.
Little things like that.
And they just think they're clowning around, and they probably heard it out of their parents' mouth.
Oh yeah, no, they've heard it, but it's negative, and so it can hurt them. This one I'm particularly thinking of, the mom would always make comments about how the older brother was always well behaved and so smart and stuff, and but not this one, or good luck, or just these little digging comments.
And what do children do with that?
Well, in his case, he was like, okay, fine. I'm not going to get attention that way, then I'm going to get attention the negative way. And he got in trouble all the time. He was trying to get attention because his other sibling was getting all the attention for all the things that he was doing, and mom was bragging about all the things that the other sibling was doing, but nothing about him. And so it turned around. I mean, he was resentful. He was hurt, and so he acted out to try to get attention. And because any attention is better than no attention.
That's true.
So it backfire when we start comparing our children to each other.
And it's just because it's always been done doesn't make it right.
That's right.
And there are tools you can use to be able to change this. And so as you're going through, think of ways you compare and compete. And what negative or positive dialogue do you have with it? And are you displacing it on other people? Because if you are comparing yourself to other people and then you're hurting yourself, that's bad. If you're comparing yourself to somebody else and thinking that you're better than them, that's also bad.
Right.
There's nothing right about hurting someone or doing negativity about any of it. And there are things that parents can do in the home, like saying they're beautiful, and give us a couple other things so that there's less comparing and competing, and we can get back more to who we were as preschoolers and kindergartners.
Yeah.
And not that we're never going to be pure aware, but that we could be more wholesome or healthy.
Accepting of ourselves and accepting of others.
That's a powerful word, accepting.
I think so.
And we are brilliantly made to be great, and we are totally beautiful. And remember,
Emotions are information.
and behavior's a choice. See you next week.
See you.
Bye. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the inUpowers podcast. We are grateful you are here. Please share this podcast with those you know who might need it, and follow and rate us so we can continue providing this podcast to you. Follow us on social media to see more visuals about the inUpowers, and join us next week for another episode. Until then, remember, the power to choose is in you.